everyone. We're going to try something new today. I'd like to introduce you to Michelle Sugarman, who is an executive coach with Leading Synergies. It's actually your own coaching company.
That's true.
And I've known Michelle for 5 or 6 years now. She was actually hired by me in my last position to serve as an executive coach for our organization. Michelle specializes in C-suite executives. And I asked her today to come. She usually comes to the classroom, so you would have a chance to ask her questions. So today instead we're going to just do sort of a little interview with Michelle, and I'm going to ask her some questions. So thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here.
Well, I'm so thrilled you would accept my invitation. So, Michelle, to start out with, you've been coaching how many years altogether?
Over 10.
Over 10 years she's been coaching. And prior to that, tell them a little bit about what you did.
Interesting. What I did was work within a technology industry, and I did a lot of project management. So I found myself learning a lot about what it would take to do the job better and how I could connect the business pieces to the people pieces. And that's really where my passion is how do you get more done with people.
Right, exactly. And you've done an amazing job. So I thought I'd start out with referring to our textbook about executive coaches. So what's the difference, Michelle, between coaching a C-suite person and, say, an individual contributor or manager?
That, I think that's a really good question, and I think that coaching managers is challenging. And I think that what you experience in a management position is addressing the top level, who you're reporting to, those who report to you.
Right.
You're kind of caught in the middle, so there are some different challenges there. And I think you're also able to focus a little bit more on projects, specific things that are getting done. I think an executive works a lot more on a strategic level, so they're worried a little bit more about the perception of the organization by other organizations or the press. They're also wondering how they're going to take the organization into the future.
Next level.
Into the next level. So they're thinking about a lot of high-level, complex issues, where the mid-manager is really thinking about how to demonstrate success to a manager above them, or how to motivate an individual within their team.
And performance improvement, how to get people to improve their performance.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. So when you're working with C-suite people, do you work with them on visions, missions, values, those really big things we always think?
Things. Yes, and that is really a good point, because the executive is ultimately responsible for where the organization is going. And I think it's challenging for an executive to also include their own values in their work. They're challenged with lots of hours during the day. They're challenged with life balance.
Oh, life balance.
That's a big one. Right, and they're challenged with how they're going to communicate the vision and the mission to the organization consistently. How to model that, how to practice it, and then how to make sure that that's the message going forward. So it's got to be right. It needs to be right the first time.
So modeling, I think we overlook that so often. So you can help someone at that executive level learn how to deliberately model for the for their direct reports and the organization at large, right?
So take the example of innovation, for example. That's really hard to model. The challenge in innovation is that you're taking risks. You're relying on other people within the team to take the risk with you, and you're also responsible for getting results. But how can you do that as a leader and demonstrate that you're willing to take the risks, that it's okay to be wrong, that it's okay to take a little bit of time to get it right, but then to reward that? If an individual executive is not able to take a risk, they're not going to probably demonstrate to other people that it's okay.
Or inspire others to take that risk.
Exactly.
Wow, what a great example.
That's a good one.
So when you're working with all these different people, think back over all the people you have coached and talk about what are some of the most common things that people want to be coached on, or that you analyze and decide?
You know, a lot of it comes down to leadership. And so it could be the executive themselves working on their own leadership skills and developing in that. A lot of delegation.
Oh,
I think when people
delegation.
rise to the top, they find themselves top performers, find themselves doing all of the work because it always worked and they're very good at it.
And
So
they worked hard.
They worked hard to
They
get
were
there.
dedicated.
They know their way. They like to do it their
Yeah.
way. So delegating to other people is a challenge because you've got to teach people and trust them and work with the mistakes and be patient and then teach again. So I think delegation is hard for someone who's gotten to the top and now they've got to work with other people to get the same work done instead of making sure that they're doing all the work because they don't have the bandwidth at that point.
No, no. And anything else come to mind? That
I
you-
think life balance is a big one.
Life
And
balance.
how they can manage the expectations of the organization and then also maintain their personal boundaries. And what does that mean? It's different for each individual. And you don't dictate that answer as a coach. You allow them to design that.
Design that. Do you ever work with CEOs or C-suite people on working with boards?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is a good one. In fact, I recently just talked with someone who was being asked to be on the board and to contribute in that way. And it's almost a prerequisite in this particular case to promotion. So it's interesting to see how it's important to see that level of contribution, and that the people around that executive want to see them not only contributing to the organization but also to the community and that sort of thing.
Wow. Anything else that comes to mind?
I think a skip level is something that's
Oh,
interesting.
right. You and I were talking about
Right.
that earlier.
So if there was a situation where someone is at an executive level and finding themselves struggling to work with their peers or finding that it's hard to implement something, they may be challenged to go to the CEO or a CIO and have that conversation. And it's interesting because there is a right way and a wrong way to do that. So having the knowledge of helping them walk through the process and what they want to be prepared to talk about, and then how they're going to respond to what is discussed in that meeting is something that comes up quite a bit.
Right. Someone actually in our class mentioned skip-a-level meetings and whether they're effective or not. And I think I responded and said I'd been involved in a skip-a-level meeting, and the sad thing was that nothing came out of it.
Right, and I
so-
think it does depend on who you've skipped to.
Right, yeah.
Because if that person
Good
is
point.
very effective, they will then be able to orchestrate some of the things that need to change to make sure that that person who skipped up to talk to them is then empowered to make some of the changes that they
Empowered.
discussed.
And yet retains that confidentiality.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it should give them a good lay of the land picture of what's going on in skip level.
And you know very frankly what is being expected then. Here are the 3 things that we want to see you working on so that maybe it will no longer be a skip level, but then I will just be promoting you. I'd like to see these 3
Wow.
things, work
Good
on these
point.
3 things.
So our class is primarily made up of HR folks who are learning about learning and development and coaching as part of it. So I hired you, but tell me what you think these folks should be looking for when they go about hiring an executive coach.
Right. I think there are a lot of coaches out there,
Oh,
and I think a
a
lot
lot.
of coaches want to contribute. I think they have the best intention,
Mm-hmm.
but the experience that I have in the business world prepares me quite a bit
That's true.
for asking the right questions. And I happen to have a passion for it, so I'm always learning and always discovering new ways to think of things and new ways to approach the challenges that the executives have. So I would say someone who is passionate about it and then also has specific track record, who might be able to show from the past a couple of comments from someone they've talked to before, even if it's a tangible or intangible monetary value that they could place on the coaching. You could measure what has changed
Yeah.
based on a coaching partnership.
And I think that you bring up a very good point. We talk a lot in class about ROI, return on investment. And I think we have to say that you can measure coaching. What are the goals? Did they reach the goals? What are
Exactly.
they doing to demonstrate that they've reached that goal?
Exactly.
So,
And increase the bottom line. Yeah, and
Right.
I do think there are a few other things. One of the things that I know I have a personal style towards strategy, and I think very strategically. My natural inclination is to ask those questions and to understand the big picture so that I can help the executive fit into that. And I think that that's important. I think that understanding the style and having a concept of being on equal footing with the executive. I
Ah.
think it's very important that you come in as a partnership. If there's an intimidation factor from one level or the other, it's
It
a
doesn't
coaching
work.
partnership is ineffective.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And then I would also say that each coach should probably have a framework. What is their approach when they
Right.
begin an engagement? What is the approach that they're going to take? I personally like to do a little bit of discovery, and then I like to design with the client what the solutions might be, what we want to work on, what
Ah.
skills need to be enhanced. And then I also like to see then the implementation, go through that process, run into all the walls that we'll run into through that
Yeah.
process, and then review it in the end.
Very good. And
So-
you are a proud member of ICF.
Mhm. Yes.
Actually, that's how I found Michelle, was through ICF. So you're at the master level, aren't you?
No, not quite.
Almost.
Well,
You're at the professional
It takes
level.
so many hours
I
for
know.
the MCC. That's
Right,
about
you're at the-
2,500 hours. Or
Yeah,
something
you're
like
at
that.
the PCC level,
Yes,
though.
I have that many hours to do that.
So that's a good question to ask a potential coach. Are you certified through ICF, International Coach Federation? Because they set out certain requirements to become certified. You have to have so many hours of training, so many hours of coaching, pass a written and a coaching demonstration.
Right.
So it's a really
It's
good
extensive effort.
It's an extensive effort, and so always find that sort of thing out. Michelle, thank you for your time
Thank you,
today.
Carla. This
I
has
really
been fun.
appreciate it. I wish many reasons I wish this class were in person, because I've gotten to know some of them through their posts and things, and it's a terrific class. But thank you for
Thank you
your time.